Hello everyone. Welcome to the channel. If you're interested in our stories, please subscribe to our channel. Before I get started, I want to give a warning for sexual abuse for the first story. It doesn't go into great detail, but it is hinted. When I was 15, my homeschool teacher tried to make a pass at me. School was a normal one, and I was a regular kid. Not popular, not top of the hierarchy. Known for being smart, but never labeled as a nerd for it, we had a teacher who I'll refer to as Malcolm, and he always wore blue top. For privacy, I won't say what lessons he taught, but I had him for my class when no one dared defy him. It wasn't a popular teacher, but everyone respected him due to his quiet air of authority. I had a "you better not mess with me" kind of vibe. I sat in the second row closest to the front. I only had one friend in his class. Man, I was ultimately friendly with most of the class. It was winter, and we had to do an assessment in preparation for exams approaching in the coming year. Hey, never act as friends. Way around me passed at me, stay behind to talk about our work. I didn't think anything of it, although I'm looking back it was weird that he wouldn't talk to us privately. Most teachers in my experience don't discuss your work with other people. Anyway, that'll after talking to him, what is said is overshadowed by the memory of what came next. It was talking me about his expectations for next year. When I suddenly felt his hand moved, a rest on my butt. I jerked away from him, utterly baffled when to do that. I thought he was about to turn up page or something. He was sitting on his chair, and I was behind the desk with him, stared back at me, but only for a second before he then laughed. Dude, who is incapable of laughter. But he told me he was sorry for nudging me, that it was an accident. I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. I felt uneasy. Indefinitely was not enough. It just for me to come back towards him, but I looked at the clock. It said about having to go soon. It was once time now, so I wanted to get to my May. And like I said, I felt uneasy. Malcolm then told me that it would only take another minute to show me something near him again. He just continued as if nothing had happened. Before he again moved Japan. This time he tried to grab my crime and darted back work. I shouted at him to fuck off, and his face went scarlet. It looked incredibly nervous, and he told me I needed to come down. I then ran out of the classroom and flew down the corridor. It didn't take a long to bump into another teacher with some other senior teacher, and that was been made to wait outside. The teacher went and said he needed a private word. So the other teacher shuffled out. They were in there for like 15 minutes before I was called in. The teacher left me with a head and mistress. She told me she was contacting my parents and told me everything would be okay. She asked me to tell her exactly what happened with Malcolm. So I did. Can you listen? And I could see the disgust on her face. It was long, so surreal. My parents were furious, and they demanded Malcolm be thrown in jail, wiped in, and that an investigation had to be conducted first. And the police were then contacted too, telling the truth, which honestly pissed me off. Her high school and CCTV in the corridor. So I was on video running out of mouth and classroom. Turns out he fled the school and went back to his house. I really don't know what the hell he expected. It came out then he'd apparently assaulted multiple students over a 12-year period. Boys and girls. He casually targeted the quieter kid. And I guess they mistook me for one since I only had one friend in his class. Or maybe he wanted to take up the stake and target a kid he knew would possibly shout at him from my best to deny what happened. Some people were really dicks about it. I'm not homophobic, but people told me gay like it was an insult. Some of my so-called mates even distanced themselves from me. Some people thought I was full of shit. In the end, only 3 out of 6 of my destinations actually stood by me. People I was friendly with just distanced themselves or tried to show support suddenly. Malcolm was dismissed from the school and other students then came forward. I wasn't even his youngest target. A targeted for here. With her age between 11 and 12, in my country what his other victims endured as his hands were 1 million times worse than what he did to me. I became withdrawn and angry. I felt really embarrassed, and everyone knowing what happened. Didn't help matter. My parents let me move school, and I had to move to one. It was a 40-minute car ride away. I couldn't go to the other local one because just everyone knew there too. At first I refused to be involved in the court situation. The person who got me to change my mind was my dad. It took me out fishing one weekend, and I ended up opening up to him. He told me that I had to stop feeling so embarrassed and that I needed to help put this bastard away. He told me that it wasn't my phone and that he would always be prone to have me as a sign. Hearing all that from my dad meant everything to me out. Hearing my dad tell me that he still loved me and was proud of me made me realize maybe I wasn't my fault after all. I was afraid as hell when D-Day arrived. But I hit it, figures are down. But he got a decent one. No, I want enough. We're hoping in there forever. The long enough to where I can actually sleep at night. Hey, might be dead before he's eligible to get out. I've actually stayed in touch with some of his other victims. So, I'm just wanted to disappear after it all. And I get it. But for those of us still in touch, we still talk every once in a while. And we always wish one another well whenever it's a holiday or a birthday. We share our biggest milestones. They told me if it wasn't for me, we wouldn't be where we are now. But in my eyes, victims are far away than I ever was. Now from destroyed so many lives over the year. But he'll never destroy our future. All I have to say to him now is exactly what I said when I was 15. Fuck off contacts. I'm currently a 22-year-old female living in the United States. But I didn't attend elementary school here. This happened when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And I don't remember the exact details as I was very young. But I'll try my best. In the country I grew up, that for supplementary after-school classes is completely normal and expected to a certain event, and apart from what happened in the story this day. Despite living thousands of miles away. Anyway, I have another friend who we'll call Courtney for the sake of the story, activities with ever since I was about 4 years old. My gymnastics, art, and dance. And that also included our supplementary academic classes as well. So Courtney and I started to attend this class together, and we were replacing the same class with who we're very excited about. The teacher for this class was a man probably in his either mid-20s or mid-30s. But I'm not 100% sure. As when you're that young, it's hard the age ranges of adult. Either way, he was definitely too old to be doing what he did. Everything started off relatively normal when the class. And so I noticed him staring at me. Why not? As well as making word comments like how pretty I was or how great of a girl I was. I was young enough that these comments didn't really bother me, but also old enough to know that it was pointedly weird. I think this went on for a couple of months without me saying anything about it. After a while, we found out that our teacher was moving back to his home country to get me read. Either from telling us or the center letting it snow, as we would have to switch teacher. The comments have still been going on. But that was one specific comment that has always stuck with me. We were in class one day, and the topic of a fiancé came up. Even as an 8 or 9-year-old, I understood the concept of marriage. And I knew it was something that adults did. And that made me feel really weird because, well, to me I was a kid and he was an adult. How could we get married? Hey, also really grossed me out. Even then. So on my head I was just like, bro, I wouldn't want to mirror you. But I don't remember saying anything best. I probably just laughed it off. When my mom came to pick me up that day, I told her what he said. And she was obviously very disgusted. And she told my dad and grandfather about it. And of course they were live at my grandfather's on my mom to immediately take me out of this class and be placed in one with a different teacher, as I would transfer to my class once the teacher moved back home. My mom was really good friends with Courtney's mom and later found out that the teacher was still making comments about me to Courtney. I miss her. I really wish she could be my wife. Because Courtney would tell her mom, who would tell my mom. Now he never physically did anything to me regardless. Thank you all for listening to my story. I know that it wasn't as scary yet. My parents. Always check in on your kids. It's like consider myself Milwaukee for having that gut feeling I should tell my mom, but there's a theory high chance I never would have mentioned anything if that mirror's comment was never made. So please everyone, talk to your children. And make sure that nothing like this ever happens to them. Female from the UK, my high school mate has taken a foreign language class in there. This was just my first time having him as a teacher. He seemed completely normal. And he wasn't inappropriate with students or anything. At least from what I saw. While one day when I was in a science class, a girl and told us that she knew why Mr. Aman, his wife, are divorced. Say one in school knew about his divorce. And he had confirmed it to some students once but never went into it. I wasn't prepared for what I heard at all. The girl told us that Mr. Ram and married one of the students as soon as she turned 18. Like literally the month she turned 18. And now the shoe's 20, their marriage was over. We were all shocked, but not everyone believed it, and a lot of people thought it was a bullshit rumor. Some of us said it was creepy, and others trying to defend it by saying, well, at least he waited until she was 18. The thing is, the under 18. And still it was so gross and messed up. Hey, was her teacher? And he was like 50-something, and all the rumors spread around school, and eventually someone was actually brazen enough to straight up ask Mr. Rim if its soon-to-be ex-wife was really a student. Hey, Ashley confirmed it to the class, telling everyone that they connected when she graduated and fell in law, turned 18. Someone at the school brought it up with other teachers, and they said pretty much the same thing me. It's rolling and nerving to discover that a teacher I had was married to a student literally as soon as she turned 18. I really highly doubt. Nothing was going on until she graduated. And even if that works for you, 50s during the divorce. So who was more than twice her Ray? And yeah, I think it's pretty likely that they were in a relationship when she was still a kid and a student. It's so sick. I'll teach you to get away with that. And it made the classes with him utterly unbearable. And he gave me the free don't always seem like predator. Many of them are teacher, and sometimes you'd never know the sort of secrets that can still behind a mask of professionalism and friendly net. It's absolutely chilling just for some bank store. I was a very shy and quiet girl at the time, and I didn't have many friends. I was basically a bit of a loner. Anyway, I had music class with this one teacher. I don't remember as an actual name, so for the sake of the story, I'll just call him Mr. Martin. Now, Sir Martin was known as an overall nice teacher. Bond with a bit of a timber was laid or interrupted him shot at them at the top of his lawn. He would go ruling angry that when he would shout it would be flying out of his mouth. Hey, Facebook get bright red. All of the kids will get terrified to a regular smiling teacher acting as if nothing had happened. Before I tell you what happened to me, the music classroom was not a direct part of the school. There was a little hallway that connected from the main body of the school to the music room. The closest classroom to the music room wasn't at least 40 to 50 feet away. This classroom belonged to another teacher that I didn't like. Miss Webb was not a nice teacher at all. Everyone seemed to not like her. If I would ask her for help on an assignment, she would smear at me and tell me to figure it out, and refuse to help me any further. Miss Webb also points a part of the story. Anyway, one day I was in music class with Martin, and we're learning the keyboard. I remember that we were playing the song Old MacDonald, and I was actually pretty proud of myself, as I was not messing up. At one point, the entire class playing the song without anyone making any mistakes, and Mr. Martin was actually static. Then once we were done with the song, he was so happy he shouted, "Great job, everyone. Let's do it one more time." We all started from the top, and about halfway through the song, I made a mistake. I tried to correct myself, but the rest of the class can continue. I just made it worse. There are kids in front of playing the wrong keys as well, and the song was ruined. Mr. Martin then shouted, "Enough. Stop it." And everyone stopped playing right away. Hey, down toward me. And he forced me out of the classroom into the hallway away from the music room, grabbed my throat, and began to squeeze so I can barely breathe, checking and find the screen for someone would hear me, came up to me and gave me my backpack. And I went to my next class. I think I am surprised this memory, and I only told my parents about a month later. They didn't believe me. They were probably thinking I was just making an excuse to avoid school. But I knew the truth. Since they didn't believe me, the school was never told. And nothing ever happened to Mr. Martin. It wasn't until years later that I realized Miss Webb and Mr. Martin had promised each other that they would just keep us a secret between now, which now makes sense as to why he was never caught. Miss Webb covered for him instead of ensuring the safety of the students of the school. I know this isn't a very good ending. Bond, this pretty much where my story is. Sometimes I wish I could go back and tell the principal or lie and told my parents earlier, so that would be forced to take some action even now and asking her about it. I don't really know what good that would even do though. Maybe it would just give me from closure. I don't know. But you can bet that if my kids told me something like this, I would raise hell. Hey everyone. That's about it for today's story. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this video. Have a good night.